everyone, and welcome to the Future of Space. I'm your host, Daniel Fox. Our guest today is Robert Feierbach. Robert has been a space industry leader and entrepreneur for nearly 30 years, working in Europe for the likes of CES Global and Eutelsat, and in the US for companies like SpaceX and Maxar. He's president of Maritime Launch USA, the US affiliate for Canada's first commercial spaceport based in Nova Scotia, founder and CEO of Zero G Launch, and an executive director for an upcoming space-themed Hollywood film, Helios, which plans to begin shooting later this year. Robert, welcome to the Future of Space.
Daniel, it's my pleasure to be here and share a few moments with you today.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more about Hollywood and Zero G. But before we get over there, could you share with us 3 words that for you capture the essence of space?
I think first one has to be mesmerizing. There's something about space that is just hard to grasp and fabulous at the same time. Second word would be challenging. We all, in our industry, call it space is hard, and there's a reason why we say space is hard. It is difficult, and it's very challenging. And third, it would have to be exciting. I mean, how much more exciting can we make humanity than to go beyond our earthly frontier, right? So those would be the 3 I would choose, Daniel.
Now, mesmerizing, was space always mesmerizing for you, even as a little kid, or that's something that you grew up into as you got older?
It started when I was a very little kid. When I was a very small kid, I couldn't see very well, and I didn't know that I needed glasses, and neither did my parents, for that matter. And I squinted a lot in class, but no one ever pointed out that I couldn't see very well. So I couldn't really see the stars very well. The day I got glasses, it must have been 9 years old or maybe 10, I can't remember. I discovered the stars in the sky. And mind you, I was living in La Paz, Bolivia, in the Andes. So the skies were beautiful, full of stars back then. But that was my first discovery of these incredible, shiny, pristine objects in space that just got me enthralled into everything that has to do with the universe and stars and understanding why the planets keep changing positions in the sky and things like that. There are a few other events as a kid, that sometimes I connect and think, wow, was that maybe the moment? And another one was when we were up in the mountains one day doing one of our early morning 3 a.m. treks to go fishing or hunting in the mountains. And I saw these little pellets that looked like droplets and going in the same direction everywhere out there. And I asked my father, what in the world? These are like molten rock, but they all look like, drain drops. He said, I believe that must have been a small meteorite. They came in, melted, and then dispersed across the hillside here. He could see a depression. And that was his take of what could have happened there. And again, those are the kind of things that are just incredible to understand, that we're surrounded by a live universe that we're in contact with here on Earth. So to me, that is really the essence of when I say mesmerizing. There's so much to learn that we still don't know about. And there's so much that we are learning right now that just captures the imagination of people like me.
Yeah, we're entering an era of, I think, experience and knowledge that is just going to completely redefine what it is to be human in this universe. And we can go deep. I mean, actually, that's a perfect segue. I mean, beyond the science and the technology of going to space, because obviously that's a big part of it. But what is the human story of going to space?
Well, I think it goes way, in my opinion anyway, Daniel, it goes way, way back to the mere existence of intelligent life, intelligent humans, I should say, on Earth. I mean, if you look back at history, when you ran out of food in your immediate environment as cave people, perhaps, you had to go out, search further, go further away, maybe disappear for 2-3 days. And in those 2-3 days, you had to figure out how to not only survive the cold nights, perhaps, or how to find right shelter, or how to defend yourselves from prey or preying animals or preying, other species and beings. And in every step of those, and we've been even maybe going back to the history when Yemen, so to speak, was the beginning of the Middle Eastern, African civilization that went north to Rome and Greece and the big civilizations back there. Once those got sort of into a steady state where nothing much new was happening, people went further north. There they needed to create new kinds of clothing because all of a sudden it was cold, very cold at night. And you had snow where they didn't have it down there, wherever they were. And so every single time we do that, we explore, we invent, we create new technologies. And then from when Europe, then there was a mass exodus to come to the Americas, similar things. And we had to figure out better ships, better technology to be able to handle goods and things like that. And I think it's absolutely our imperative as humans to understand and to also be able to survive outside of our little rock, our beautiful earthly rock that we have here, in our surrounding rocks, because we just don't know when or we don't know how we will be stricken by another major rock that hits our earth. It could be 100,000 years from now. It could be 500,000 years from now, or it could be 10,000 years from now. Something will come in and will be beyond our capability to defend against. And we need to be able to preserve our history, our technology, our stories, our poetry, our love, everything else that we've invented over generations and generations of intelligent humans, and continue that somewhere else or externally from our Earth. I'm not saying I'm a doomsayer for Earth, but I think it behooves us to do that. It's our imperative to understand it and to be able to survive and thrive elsewhere as well, as natural human explorer beings that we are.
Yeah, I was thinking of your three words: mesmerizing, challenging, and exciting. And basically that applies to every new boundaries that we push, whether, when you're born in a little village, you were born in Bolivia, and then you see the mountains and you're mesmerized to see, imagine what it would be like at the top or beyond the mountains. And now obviously after that you have to figure out how to go there, climb up, or past the mountains, which is the challenge. And then once you do that, then it's exciting. That's the same thing that happened when we got on the beach and look over the horizons on the ocean. It's mesmerizing to imagine what is beyond the horizon, and then you have to figure out how to get on the water and navigate these uncharted waters. And then once you pass that, then it's exciting. Space has been, now it's that for a lot of people, it's been mesmerizing just for the sake of having this world above our heads, not thinking that we had the capacity. But the challenge is now it's being met, and we go beyond, and there's an excitement that is taken over, and we're continuing this story that that life started to write millions of years ago, growing in complexity on the planet, and now about to go multiplanetary and go beyond. I think we don't give ourselves enough credit as the human species. I think that, I don't believe life is just messy. Evolution is complicated by nature because it demands a certain pushing the boundaries to figure out how to move to the next place. But the humans are definitely good at taking what nature has given them and go beyond. Nature has didn't give us the clothes that we have or the roof that we have over our heads. We're born into this world extremely naked and at the mercy of everything else. And somehow we've figured out how to create a world that can give us longevity and access to options that the animal world is, kind of limited in their lives. Is that something that you agree with?
Oh, completely. I mean, think about, one thing that I think about very often that I talk with people who are not really space people, right? Over a dinner or something like that, is that just to understand and realize that everything that is here on Earth came from somewhere else, right? That we're surrounded by extraterrestrial beings, the gold that we have, the plutonium that's here, the calcium that is on Earth came from supernova explosions or huge interstellar exchange of masses that have been traveling over hundreds of billions or tens of billions of years. And when you realize that everything we're stepping on, and even when we pinch ourselves, our skin, everything else, we have extrastellar DNA there, right? It didn't create itself. We didn't make it, like you say. We didn't create anything here. We are made from stars, right? And that is just it's a fascinating thing to think about, because everything here and all the precious metals are not creating themselves here on Earth. They came from somewhere else, right? And that's pretty crazy to think about when you think mountains and enormous continents full of different kinds of minerals and different kinds of exploitable, compounds and things like that we use for our, to better our everyday life, came from somewhere else, came from up there. And it's pretty crazy, I think.
I mean, we take things for granted. I mean, obviously, you have the saying about the two fish that speak to each other, and then they don't realize that they're swimming in the water that they are. And yesterday, when I was on the plane, and just a side note, but I was on the plane and I was trying to think of the Wright brothers when they were creating, pushing the boundaries, and obviously they're looking at the sky and how to fly. They would not even understand what we're doing today. But the thing that kind of got stuck in my head is when I got up and I went to the bathroom, and I'm thinking, I don't even think that the Wright brothers understand that now we have this group of people that are up and they have meals, they eat, they send emails, and then they go to the bathroom while up in the sky. And now we look at the future, we look at the space, and we it's hard for us to understand how a future in space can exist, because right now our understanding of the challenges is right now. But in 50 years, in 100 years, we'll look back, and what is challenging today will be considered, it's just that they hadn't figured it out, but it will be taken for granted at that moment, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's all a question of evolutionary steps that we're taking as humans, right? We can't imagine 20 years from now what we will be doing with electronics and consumer electronics at that. I mean, when you look 20 years back, where we were without the iPhone, for example, right? I mean, so many things have changed that we're developing, and it's always a stepwise evolution from one to the next to the next. And I remember playing around with I think we used 12 car batteries when I was 18 years old. I was in California, and I was at some friend's house there in Montecito, across the bay in San Francisco, and we thought we had this big electrical motor that their father had in the shop, and we thought, hey, what if we power this car just with batteries, and can we rig a system up there? So we put 12 car batteries in the back of this car, and the car was basically almost to the ground because it was so heavy in the back, but we were able to go about 1.5 miles or maybe 2 miles before the batteries died, right? With a pulley driving the front wheel of this car. So, I mean, who would ever imagine that we would have these tiny little cell phone batteries, lithium-ion cell phone batteries, so compact, so energy powerful, that now we could put a few thousands of those and then power a car, and let alone power a car very comfortably and take you 400 miles, of range with one charge. I mean, we are just developing so many wonderful things here that are many times based on some research that we're doing in space as well, which a lot of people don't know, right?
Now, talking about pushing those boundaries, you started in Bolivia. Now you are in Washington. You've been in Europe in telecommunication. Um, you're building spaceport. You're involved in building a spaceport in Nova Scotia and about to launch a zero-G launch, zero gravity planes. Can you, tell us how did all come about, and specifically the spaceport in Nova Scotia? What are the plans for that? And the zero G, what are you trying to accomplish with these flights?
Yeah, as you said, Daniel, I've been around in the industry. I was actually born in California, but I was raised in Bolivia to an American father. But because we spoke three languages at home, and I was exposed to German and Spanish and English, and then I really had this itching to go to Europe again. And I'd been in France and in Austria for a year at a time when I was younger. And I had this itching to go back when I got my master's degree. So I took the lowest paying job that was offered me, but it was the one that offered me to go to Europe right away. So we went to the Netherlands with my wife and I. And that was my first sort of taste of what it was like to be in the space industry. And we're working for EchoStar back then that, was just going to ride the wave of the small pizza-sized dish that was never done before with the KU band, right? And that really made the market explode there. And so I went through my career, through doing basically broadcast services on video and analog, where you had, one analog channel per transponder, to sticking 5 or 6 digital MPEG-2 channels in that same channel or transponder, if you call it, to doing digital compression in MPEG-4 and putting 16 or 15 channels. A lot of people said back then, "Oh, satellite's dead because they're going to run out of channels, and the price will drop." The opposite happened. Thousands and thousands of TV channels were enabled then to afford to take the ride on the broadcast channels of those satellite operators to be able to diffuse their broadcast channels around. And then we went from there to two-way satellites, data, of course, from the geostationary orbits. And now we're doing that same with small constellations or even large constellations of LEO satellites in low Earth orbits, which are going to last 3 to 4 or 5 years, not 15 years, but they allow us to refresh that technology much quicker, much easier, and they're smaller satellites, so therefore they're cheaper. Again, taking advantage of a lower cost technology and lower cost to access and launch those satellites to low Earth orbit. So through my career, I've seen these different evolutions, and then obviously working with SpaceX as well, the understanding the rocket part of the whole equation and how that works and how difficult that is, and seeing with tremendous respect SpaceX just take a domineering role today in the launch business, creating new models, bringing rockets back, creating models where you can lower the cost of kilogram to put your technologies into orbit. So working with Maritime Launch has been a real pleasure for me because I've been working as a consultant with Steve Mateer, the CEO of Maritime Launch in Nova Scotia, who came from the space shuttle kind of side from NASA. He was originally from New Mexico. He moved his entire family to Nova Scotia because he thought this is a wonderful place to develop a spaceport. He thought with that northeastern reach of the island, you could go to so many different inclinations, and there was no better place in all of northern America, as a matter of fact, to launch to as many places as you want to go, especially in low Earth orbit. So I worked with him, and then when finally the company got the first $20 million equivalent, roughly, in financing, and they got the okay from the country, from the government of Canada, to begin construction late last year in September. That's when right before that, that's when Steve asked me to join the company to establish the U.S. Affiliate of the Spaceport Nova Scotia, so that we have also that U.S. access to not only U.S. technologies for certain things that we need in the preparation of the spaceport. I mean, you have propellant systems, you have launch tracking systems, you have all kinds of support infrastructure that has to be built there, and so we need to have a good interface with not only the U.S. Providers of those, but also with the small satellite value chain in terms of manufacturing, in terms of operators and so forth, that to have those customers launch from Spaceport Nova Scotia. And one of the things that I really have a tremendous respect for Steve on, for having endured not only 5+ years and trying to get a license to from the government to actually be an operator and launch rockets from Canada. Not an easy thing, I have to say. Is the fact that he engaged himself in social license, and by that I mean he spent the time with the local fire department, with the local community, the First Nations, the local pizza delivery or the pizza maker there in town, and so forth. And over the course of these 4.5 to 5 years, he was able to obtain an approval rate, which we did. We did a market study to see what the approval rate is of Spaceport Nova Scotia. It's nearly 90%, because he engaged himself to become a fixture and a part of that social makeup of Nova Scotia. And that is why he has the backup now, not only of the government of Canada in terms of allowing him to launch and allowing Maritime Launch to launch from there, but he's got the absolute support of the local community. And I think that's really an important thing to mention here, because that's a big differentiator, I think, from the way other spaceports have done it, with some big investments and saying, here we are, and we're going to create lots of jobs and just wait and see. And of course, some of them are still waiting and seeing to see what happens, right?
Always through the people first, and then after that, because I strongly believe that usually people are not against by default the progression or evolution. What they always have trouble with, obviously, is dealing with change. But if you can get them on board, it's always more exciting for the people once they understand what is their future beyond, after this change. Is there a timeline? Are you in a position to establish to share a timeline for the spaceport?
Yeah, the Spaceport Nova Scotia and Maritime Launch is a public company, so therefore disclosures have to be very, very public on anything that's happening there. The first suborbital launch is being prepared now for July this year, and that is a test flight that will involve obviously Transport Canada as the regulator for clearing launches and so forth. The local regulators, also the local police and everybody else, to make sure everybody understands what normally happens around, even if it's just a test flight, it's something that we want to be able to perform to kind of get the system wet, to start the process there. The road has already been built over the 350-acre lot nearly 350-acre lot that has been leased from the Crown, and I'm happy to say that it now goes all full length all the way to the pad, where we're going to start building the cement pad to support that first suborbital launch. So things are happening there. It's very exciting to see all these big yellow trucks, going in and out. And now you can actually drive with a normal car instead of walking 1.5 hours like we did from the edge of the spaceport to the middle where we were going to launch, with big boots and wellies that kind of got stuck in the mud as we walked in there. Now you can actually drive all the way there. So it's a really exciting time for us, because, you can see the spaceport taking shape right now. And it's exciting for me to see. And I'm sure it's exciting for my teammates in Canada as well, seeing that take place over there.
And it will be exciting for a lot of Canadians also. I have to share, and I get goosebumps just telling you this, but we were on the ferry. The last day that I was down in the Caribbean, we were on the ferry from Saint Bart to Saint Martin, and it gotten dark. The sun had gone down, and I look up, and I see this bizarre jellyfish phenomenon in the sky, and I'm going, "What is this going on?" Realizing that it was SpaceX who had just left LA, on the West Coast, and here we were all the way down into the Caribbean, being mesmerized by this phenomenon, and it brought me right back to Gattaca, when like the Ethan's character keep looking up and just having this gateway to the stars through watching these rockets going, and more the world is going to be exposed to the visual beauty of these launches, and it's just going to bring a certain sense of getting in it all together, and having this spaceport in Canada. Now you're going to have all the population around that region to experience that kind of phenomenon, right?
Correct. And I think it's an exciting time for sure, because Canada doesn't have or hasn't had a commercial spaceport ever that launches to orbit. So it's a not only an exciting thing for Canada, but it's an exciting thing for Northern America, because right now the spaceports are having so much activity in the East Coast and the West Coast of the U.S. that frankly, they're getting pretty bogged down with mission demands from different operators, and in particular different rocket systems that are now coming online to be able to become more operational, that there's more capacity needed to be able to accommodate them. So it's a great time and great timing, I would say. Also, we have quite a bit of demand. We've had up to date close to 12 operators that have approached us to with interest of also launching from Canada. So it's a good time for I think Canada and for Northern America in general as well.
Now, before we get into Helios, the movie that you somehow got involved into, you're an executive producer. Talk to us about the Zero G Launch company.
Sure, this is my baby. It's something that it's a company that comes as a result of what I've seen over these last 30 years in terms of certain areas of our space industry that still need responding to in terms of solutions. One of the other things I've always loved as well, Daniel, is aircraft. It's just seeing an airplane. I remember even in the situation that wasn't the best of all, where I was at one of the revolutions in Bolivia when I was 11 years old, and I remember seeing these P-49 aircraft that had the little teeth, painted on the sides, and they would come and dive down into the street where we lived, and then shoot, their machine guns from their wings, and I could see the light, in the wings. And then I would see a few seconds later the bullets coming down the street in front of our house, and then taking up again and going, and just marveling at how these aircraft could, navigate between buildings and so forth, and zip by our house. As horrible as that was, because obviously they were shooting people or shooting something that wasn't another aircraft. Those kind of things fascinated me. Just the way we can navigate with rockets and aircraft and so forth. So one of the things that is missing right now in the space industry is a very viable, super high quality microgravity environment to test your equipment, to test your astronauts, before you send them to space. And there are a couple companies doing that around the world today in their local countries. We are planning on providing a network of 6 of these aircraft around the world to perform very, very high quality, high performance parabolic flights for the industry. And so that's our first phase of our business, is to create this network of 6 aircraft. We'll start with 2 and then expand that, putting regional teams to be able to provide those flights for the industry that needs it today. That's a big need today. Instead of having to to launch to the ISS each time and wait wait for a year or two before you can get up there and then get your experiments back and then have to redo another one. We could provide a lot quicker, easier access to those kind of repeatable zero gravity or microgravity environments for testing and developing, all kinds of different systems and compounds and things like that as well. Second phase of that will be modifying the underbelly or a few of these aircraft, not all, so that we could do air launch services. And by that, I mean, we're not creating rockets or hypersonic vehicles ourselves. We are the carrier of those that are developing those systems. And there's also a very big market today for, in particular, the hypersonic market area and the DoD sector that needs commercial capability to augment the national capability that is provided for by Air Force and Navy and so forth, to be able to quickly iterate and quickly develop these kind of technologies from the underbelly of an aircraft by actually carrying these vehicles, drop testing them, doing captive carries and doing launches as well. So a few of them will be modified for that. Again, this kind of goes to my liking of, aircraft and aeronautics, although I could never be a pilot because I had bad eyesight and I never thought myself I could be, but it's our baby, and we're planning on deploying 6 of these around the world. So yeah.
Are you also in a position to share a timeline for Zero? When will be the first one, and where, and the second one?
Yeah, we are currently in a Series A round, fundraising round right now. If we're able to finalize this within another 2 months or so, close it, we should be flying by this time or mid-year next year with the first aircraft. So this is what we hope to see happening. Obviously, we're bullish about it, and we hope it does close and everything goes fine. But it all depends, of course, on getting that Series A closed. And we've hired an investment bank to do that already.
Well, with your experience and previous success, Robert, I'm pretty confident that next year you'll be flying. So
I won't be flying it, but I'll be flying in it.
In it, yes, absolutely.
Right.
And now, I want to be mindful of your time, but I do want to spend enough time also for an exciting project, and now you're involved with, which is a Hollywood movie that it's not just about space, but their partners is going to allow you to film in space, correct?
Yeah, I need to explain that. Not exactly, but it's a space-themed Hollywood production, obviously a sci-fi action movie. I want to use the word conscripted to participate in the movie. I read the script. I loved it. There were a few things that I thought maybe should be changed to make it more realistic. But the producers really wanted to make the movie as realistic as possible of things that actually can and will happen in space in the next decade or so. And so when I criticized the script, I said, could you be a little more precise and tell us where and where? So we signed an NDA, and I did that. And Garrett Reisman, the commander astronaut, also had done some notes. So we combined these, created all these different sort of areas in the story where real space companies can come in and be the protagonists or have a role to play in this fabulous save the world kind of story, right? And so they conscripted me to kind of bring some of these space companies, real space companies, into the storyline, and then bring them into the actual script as well, so that they can display not only their brand and so forth, but they have a role in the story of the film. So it's been kind of a fun project. We've announced that Blue Origin is going to be displaying the orbital reef in the movie. We have signed another agreement that is not yet published, but we will be announcing very soon. And a third one, we're going after 6 or 7 space brands, well-known space brands. And the third one will be, I think, imminently signed, so that we could also have it as an announceable in the next, 2 months or so. We'll kind of time them out there, but it's kind of a fun thing to see this thing take place, because I'm not a movie person. I've never done anything with production and so forth. And working with these producers and understanding how the offers go out to certain actors and actresses, and having some conversations from time to time with some of them is kind of exciting. And I have to say, it makes me happy to see that that the whole theme and the whole movie itself will be pretty faithful to what actually can happen in 2030 when Helios, the movie, is supposed to be taking place. The story anyway.
And what's the premise of the story?
Well, the premise of the story is that the sun is acting up and creating tremendous coronal mass ejections, like they do every year, of course. But now it's acting up a lot more than it ever has. So it's starting to fry some of the electronics on Earth. Some of cars are not able to start up anymore. Some things are starting. The electrical grids are having a lot of issues. The ISS now is in 2030 in its final year or so of operation, at least as of what we know right now. And this scientist heroine, who had previously been involved with a satellite constellation that had very, very strong radio frequency links between them, obviously magnetic radio frequency links between them, is brought out of retirement, basically, and rushed to a rocket to go up to space so that she can re-enable this constellation to save the world, basically, right? And it's a save the world story, but it's a save the world story with as much realism as possible into the actual feasibility of what happens in the storyline as it plays out. So I don't, as a space person, I don't want to ever be criticizing, that would never happen in space. Or what you put in that movie was just garbage. No. We don't want that, and the producers don't want that. So thus, I'm involved in that as well, on a very part-time basis, obviously. But I'm doing my part to make sure that we get the right companies and the right opportunities for companies to display their role in the story of the movie.
Now, you mentioned Blue Origin and Orbital Reef. So their participation in the movie will be more as a consultant, or there will be an actual kind of replica, and their Orbital Reef will be presented in the movie itself?
Yeah, that's actually a valid question, because obviously, we would imagine that we want some segments, or some people would imagine we would be filming segments in space. With the technology that exists today, you don't have to film everything in space. Green screen technology has gotten so good. It's expensive to film things in space, and we don't have to do that. So Blue Origin's Orbital Reef is a part of the story as a space station where the scientist heroine has to go in, and from there she has to reactivate the whole system to turn on the satellites to save the world. But we're not necessarily filming anything in space, rather than because we're starting filming at some point later this year. So we're not going to be contracting SpaceX or anybody else to go and contract some place for zero gravity filming. But a lot of that can be done, as I say, with green screen technologies that are pretty good now, and can give it that good sense of flying in space. So we have obviously working very closely with Blue Origin. We'll be having a lot of 3D kind of graphics and things like that we will render into the movie, so that we can see the astronauts and so forth, navigating inside the structures of the Orbital Reef rocket. So yeah, a lot of that will be done with very, very cool new technology that exists today for visual effects.
Well, I'm looking forward to attend the premiere with you, Robert. I'm pretty sure it's going to be fun.
You and your wife have a couple tickets. You got yourself on the list, Daniel.
Excellent. Looking forward. Listen, Robert, as someone who had such a rich life of experiencing different culture, from you mentioned being born in the U.S., growing up in Bolivia, these planes shooting around, and living in Italy and Washington D.C. and involved in space. When you look back, what would be your 3 words of wisdom for someone who's looking into embarking on their life journey and making the best of it? What would be your 3 words of wisdom?
Wow, it's kind of there's so many things that I have self-analyzed in terms of how I've been with people over the years. I've seen some very aggressive and not very likable people, and I've seen some very, very likable and totally non-aggressive people, and everything in between, right? And how does one want to be, and how does one want to be a good addition to the human race? Kind of ideas that you always think about sometimes, right? To yourself in those quiet moments. And I guess words of wisdom to me is one of the things that I really, really never want to be labeled as being non-reliable. So reliability, the opposite, is really key for me. And I think as a word of wisdom for anybody, and it doesn't matter what kind of job you're doing, what kind of industry you're in, be reliable. If you say something, if you say you're going to deliver on it, do so. Don't just talk about it. Don't just say something to make someone feel good on it. If you say it, do it, but be reliable. So that's one, right? The other is humanity. And by that, I mean, be a real human. People have different kinds of personalities. Some people have some very, very strong and energetic personalities, and some others are very, very relaxed and zen sort of in the way of being. Be aware that a lot of people will see how you interface with them in a different way, and listening, being human, understanding where they're coming from, understanding where they come from, ethnically, politically, geographically. All those things influence how people react to you and how you react to them. So I think humanity, by meaning, you're saying, being as a real human, or as human as you possibly can, by understanding these things, I think it's really, really, really important, right? Maybe the last one, from my point of view, is believing in something strong enough that it doesn't have to be this pie in the sky idea, but believing in something and being true to it, so that you as a person are happy, right? Because you believe in it, and it's something that you believe you're not only makes you go wow when you get up in the morning and makes you get excited when you get up in the morning, but believing it enough that it drives you, and it drives your happiness level in life, because it's something that it means a lot to you, and you believe in it. So that I've known, and I have some people that I know, friends from my age group, from college or high school, who just can't wait for retirement and to start living their lives, and they're not happy. And I just don't understand that, Daniel. I mean, I really feel that it's important to identify something and believe in it, and then just do it. It doesn't have to be a big money making thing, but it has to be something that you really truly believe inside of you, because that's how everybody finds their reason for being in life, and I think that's an important thing in my life, and it drives me every day. It makes me happy when I wake up in the morning.
Yeah, having that North Star, whether it's value, but also in what you want to accomplish in the world, so that when you navigate through these ups and downs, you still have that passion and that desire to come up. And I think it's. I mean, I do believe that it's a luxury that our societies have now. We now find ourselves in. If I look back into the stories of our ancestors, where living was not living was surviving. They had to figure out
Yeah.
how to put food on the table. And you read the stories of explorers navigating the oceans, or almost killing themselves so that they can record the weather in Antarctica. I think that back in those days, it was not really about what can they do to bring passion and meaningful. It was really, I need to figure out how to sort of provide to my family moving forward. But now we are living in a society and a culture where more and more, not everyone, but more and more, these questions can be asked so that you find a better meaning and navigate this life where we're going to be living longer. And there's not this idea of like, well, working for 60 years and then retiring, because you have another maybe 60 years and 70 years. So how can you actually be productive into society for 100 years? And you're always participating, you're always doing something, rather than just working and then after that disconnecting and going and sit at the beach somewhere where,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not too
You
sure
know,
that.
let me add to what you just said, because I think you're very, very right, Daniel, that being able to think about these things is a bit of a luxury, maybe of civilizations that are a bit more advanced and we're more comfortable and we have a lot more that we can think about these things. But there's also that very, very sort of primal, almost very simple environment that also can create um, what I'm trying to say in terms of your reason for being, right? Without having to if you're scrapping, to just survive and eat every day, you're not going to be able to think about things of life very much other than how can I survive to get my bit of food. But I'll give you an example of one case. My father, since he was an avid hunter and fisherman, he used to go out a lot to the Andes, and he remembered the story of this priest that was out there in a tiny little church, in the Altiplano, and this priest had just arrived. He was an American priest, and he had just arrived, and he saw that the local potato farmers had a certain yield, and he said, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to show you how to use a very, very special thing called fertilizer." So he imported some fertilizer, and he asked them to, put some of that into the dirt and so forth. Well, the next year the yield was so large that the local farmer said, "I don't know what to do with all these potatoes. I have too many. I don't have the means to take them in my donkey or my llama to take them to the local markets and so forth. I just have too many," right? And he had suggested that they import some more fertilizer again. He said, "No, no, 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 no. I don't want anything. I want things just like they were before. I was happy and I was content, and I could go out at night, light up my little cigarette and look at the stars at night, take care of my llamas, and I had a happy life." And they did not want that next step. So, you find your reason for being in the environment that you're in, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's what we believe it should be. It's what they believe it should be, or what the person believes it should be. And that's what I was trying to say is, find your raison d'être, right? Find your
Yeah.
thing that tells you this is what I am about, and it could be as simple as that, or it could be as lofty as what you want it to be. But it's got to be something that drives you, right?
And so, a wonderful way to end this conversation. And I do want to point out, yesterday I was watching this little video piece that was talking about longevity, studying the science and the technology of it. But the host was in Japan, because Japan is being looked pretty closely for longevity. There's a lot of people aging well and longer. And the Japanese person, the representative, was talking about the idea of ikigai in Japanese, which is your purpose. It's figuring out exactly where you sit in that equation and be content with it. And that and the conclusion was that ikigai, this raison d'être, this purpose, was actually one of the best foundation for longevity, for giving you a sense of aging into the future. Yes, the technology will allow you to do it, but ultimately it's that purpose, it's that ikigai that allows you to age gracefully and be productive into our society. Robert, you and I, we always have amazing conversation. Usually we have a bottle of wine, but today it's a little bit harder. But we will have another meal together, sharing food, breaking bread, having a glass of wine, and continuing this conversation.
I'm very much looking forward to that, Daniel. You just let me know when, and I'll be there, and we'll share that bottle of wine together.
Excellent. Until then, good luck with the movie, and then we're looking forward to see you fly zero G. And congratulations on the spaceport in Canada.
Thank you, Daniel. Talk to you soon.